Hey growers, welcome back to the castle. We're off on another adventure. Today we're going to go see a good friend of mine and learn how to prune apple trees. Oh, and here we are, one of my absolute favorite places. That's Butternut Farm here in the Rochester Farmington area, owned by Giff and Maid Burnap, just wonderful people. This is a fabulous family farm, a destination to bring the whole family. It's one of the best pick your own places, and I think Giff is probably the man to go to for fruit and fruit trees and care of all of the trees and bushes. So let's go see if we can find my friend Giff and learn how to prune an apple tree. I don't know how many acres he has, but he has hundreds of fruit trees. He has hundreds of blueberry and raspberry bushes. He grows pumpkins, cherries. They have a little hut where people can get ice cream and donuts. It's a wonderful family place. I really like it when we have these traditional farms that are locally owned, that people can bring their families and experience that togetherness in what it takes to run a family farm instead of a big operation run by a conglomerate. This is just wonderful. I suggest anybody to come out and visit Giff and come out and pick strawberries, pick blueberries. The season should be starting, oh gosh, it's the end of March now, so I think they open the first couple weeks of June.
Look at him shiver.
There he is. There's my friend Giff. Hey, Giff.
Dave, is that you? How's it going?
Yes, it is.
Good to see you. Good to see you. All right.
We're here today because I have a lot of people asking me, what do I do with my apple trees? I'm not a fruit guy, so you're pruning apple trees. So can we take a couple of minutes and just show people what the heck it is they're trying to do when they look at their 20-year-old apple tree that nobody's taking care of? What do they think
You
of?
plant them and forget about them, right? That's
No, that's kids.
That's kids. No, yeah, that's not a good thing to do, would plant them and forget about them. But
so you obviously, you prune every year.
Oh yeah.
So first question is, why are we pruning an apple tree?
Lots of reasons. Fruit quality is the ultimate goal here. So we prune so that the trees produce a better quality apple, easier to pick. If we leave the fruit trees to their own devices, they're going to produce low quality fruit, and they're going to grow really tall and get out of reach and hard to manage. So easy to pick and fruit quality.
So the quality itself is actually poorer on a non-pruned tree.
Correct.
Will the non-pruned tree produce more low quality fruit?
Yes.
And a well-pruned tree will produce fewer fruit but higher quality, bigger size. Okay.
And it's all about keeping light penetration into this tree canopy that we're managing.
So these trees here, I take it, obviously it looks like this section has been pruned.
Right. We pruned everything behind us for the most part, yep.
And these are trees that have not been pruned yet this year. They've already been pruned. So you're working on one here that's looks like it's probably about half, 3/4 done compared to the others down here.
Exactly. I haven't done the top of this tree yet, but I've done head height down kind of. So
when we're looking at an unpruned tree, and you've partially pruned this one, what do you look at for, I'm going to chop this off or I'm going to leave that?
Well, a big thing to remember while pruning is it's a renewal. So we want to always be taking out the oldest limbs. It doesn't matter if it's peaches, apples, blueberries, even when we're pruning our strawberries, you want to get the older limbs, the older plants out of there. So in this example, it's apples. So you make some big cuts here. I made a big cut here already. Again, there was a cut removed here.
Obviously, these big cuts, the bigger the branch, the older the branch.
That's correct, right.
I see that you didn't cut all the way back to the trunk.
I wanted to get another year or two out of this one.
Okay.
Because we're always thinking about renewal. If I cut this off all the way to the trunk, I would have left a lot of open space here. This young limb here has a bright future. This is exactly what we're looking for that renewal. Old comes out, young comes in.
So this is probably will this produce next year?
Yeah,
on
this
side?
has some fruit buds on it
Really?
here, you can
Okay.
see.
All right.
It'll produce a couple apples this year, but I'm kind of hoping it doesn't produce many and we get more vigorous growth coming
So
out.
potentially next year, when you come back, you would leave this and actually take this one
Exactly,
off
yep.
here?
So this is a
Okay.
2-stage renewal. Over 2 years,
okay.
half of it came out this year. The next year, I'll probably cut it all the way out.
So do I assume right that these coming off, these younger ones, you're going to leave these? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this is exactly what we're looking for, this calm wood, not a lot of vigorous growth, but lots of nice fruit buds, especially on a variety like this, like McCowan.
So what's the age difference between this and what you cut off here? Was
Well,
this
we
like
could
2 or
count the
3
rings.
years?
You know, this
okay.
is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was about a 6 or 7 year old limb there.
All right.
And this one's probably in its 3rd year.
So dendrochronology, right? Counting the rings.
Counting the rings. Okay, yeah. I didn't know what that meant at first.
So you've done this side. You're going to be doing this side
Walking
here?
around to this other side. And another thing is about balance in the tree. Some varieties like McCowan like to grow really vigorous and upright, and we're always trying to calm them down, and limbs like this are just beautiful because they're very calm and producing fruit, whereas sometimes in a Honeycrisp you get a limb like this, or excuse me, in a McCowan, where you got all this vigorous upright growth. I don't like these shoots. This thing up here, it's going straight up for the moon. I don't like it at all.
Yeah.
It's that really upright growth that we don't like. And you see we have this nice calmer one right here. See the difference between this limb and this one?
Oh, yeah, okay.
You know, so I'm gonna leave this one. Never cut off your younger ones like that.
Yeah.
Always cut off your older woods.
So for somebody at home that they've bought a house that they've got an old apple tree that is just like all over the place.
Right.
Do they look at making this final pruning in 1 year, or did they look at it as I do like half this year and then next year?
Sure. Yeah. If you have an older tree that's been neglected, for lack of a better word, for multiple years, yeah, you don't want to make all those cuts in year 1. But over the course of 2 or 3 years, you can get this tree back down to size and in balance and with better light penetration.
So it sounds like there is some artistic and discretionary aspect of this, that there's no absolute right or wrong, where you look at this and if I cut this off, that's wrong, or if I leave it, it's right. So there is that
pruning is an art, and the artist, being the pruner, you know, gets to express themselves on the trees, and we're thinking in multiple dimensions. This year's quality, what's happening next year, 5 years down the road. We're thinking about all these things while we're making cuts. And there's science and certainly a lot of art involved to it.
So like on this here, you'll leave all of these verticals too? So
Yep.
you're not touching these?
Right.
Okay.
I already made the big cut on this limb here. I don't want to nip too much on it because that just invigorates more vigorous growth.
So how old is this tree?
These trees, I think, were planted in 07 or 08. So what are we now? About 15, 16-year-old trees, I guess?
And will they produce
Yeah.
just
As long as
you
we
care
take
for
care
them?
of them.
So you could get 50 years out of this
Yeah,
tree?
we probably could. Will we? Probably not, but we certainly could. With good regular annual pruning, you can keep a tree the size you want and productive.
I notice this here on the ground, one would guess it's an irrigation line.
betcha, yeah.
So a drip line. Are you actually fertilizing them too through here?
Not typically through, with our tree fruits, we don't do a lot of fertigation here, mostly just ground applied products. But strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, we do use the fertigation option.
I'm not a fruit person. I've heard some people say that you shouldn't have grass growing at the base of fruit trees. Is that true?
Well, there's lots of different opinions on that. I like to keep a clean herbicide strip underneath the tree like this.
Yep.
It's easier to manage. There's no habitat for voles and mice to live. And it's a nice clean finish to our farm here. It's easy to mow the middles, the grass out here, and it's easier to maintain underneath the trees.
Do you have a problem in the winter with animals munching on the bark?
Porcupines for sure.
Oh, yeah,
Not
we've
this
got
far
a-
away from the woods. They'll stay to the trees closer to the woods.
I noticed that you don't do anything around with this number of trees. It would be virtually impossible. But So that is an issue, but you get deer coming in here? Will
Well, we would if we didn't have a deer fence. The deer fence keeps
Okay.
the deer out and our neighbors honest too.
So what we'll do, we'll just watch you prune for a couple of
Okay,
minutes here.
all right, yeah, well, kind of done the bottom of this tree already, but I can see, you know, I'm not a big fan of this
Oh wait,
guy.
not that one.
Not this
Oh,
one.
Do you just put the brush out into the...
Yeah, then we grind it up. We have a flail mower that will, we tow behind the tractor,
Yeah.
and it grinds up all the prunings and just mulches it and basically puts it back into the ground, which is a great renewal, or, you know, completing the circle, so to speak.
Now, one question I didn't ask you, when I look at a branch like this,
Yeah.
I see all of these places where little branches are coming out. Now, will the flower buds form on these little branches coming out?
Those are actually, that's a flower bud right there.
Okay.
All right,
So what do you leave a certain number of buds from a certain point, or do you just...
No, there are some varieties that you would do bud removal on to try to manage your crop load,
Yep.
okay? McCowan is not one of those that we have to do that. So I'm not really, when I'm pruning this variety, I'm not thinking about
Okay.
pruning off
Yep.
individual buds. Now, each one of these is a flower bud.
Wow, okay.
Okay, so this wood in between my fingers right here grew 2 years ago.
Okay.
This is
Wow,
what
this
grew
whole
last
section
year.
here.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So flower buds on apples form on 3-year-old wood. So this is now its 3rd year living, and you can see all these
Okay,
nice,
all right.
juicy
so that's why
fruit
there's
buds.
none out here, because this is 2 years.
This is its 2nd year.
Is that in general for most, like
Yep,
Macintosh?
every there are some varieties that will put fruit buds on 1-year-old wood, but
Okay.
that's an abnormal thing.
Yep.
So then you get back in here, so now we're on 4-year-old wood in here, and the bud doesn't form directly on it. It forms on these little spurs that
Okay.
come off of it.
Yep.
So
So you'll get no bud production and fruit production up here on this main trunk.
traditionally, yeah, there's no fruit here. There's going to
Yeah.
be some fruit buds here on these
Yeah,
little
okay.
laterals. So that's why we're always renewing, taking the old wood out and letting the younger, more healthy, vigorous is the wrong word, but just healthier wood to grow better fruit on.
Yeah, okay.
I don't like firewood up high in my tree. You know, as soon as the limb starts to look big enough to be something you want to throw in your wood stove, it's time to get that thing out of there.
How many trees do you have here?
Oh, I think we've got about 3,000 apple trees.
3,000?
3,000, yep. At different spacings. This is kind of our biggest size tree we have here. Some of them are smaller.
So you prune 3,000 trees every spring?
We start in January or February, and then we keep going until it's done. And we're almost done. Actually, we might finish up by the end of the day, Tuesday, I think.
So can you start too early or go too late waiting to prune? Can I prune these in May when the blossoms
Sure.
come up?
Yep, you can.
You'll just lose everything that you cut off.
Right, well, yeah, you could. Pretty much pruning season starts in December if you want to start that early, and right through bloom time is
through
your
bloom
window to
time.
get your
Okay.
dormant pruning done.
So the home apple tree owner bloom time is May?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so they've got another
3rd week in May, right?
Wow, so they've got almost 2 months with it.
But it's better to wait or to not wait that long.
Yeah.
If you just go out on a nice day in late March or April, day like today, and if you're just got a couple trees in the backyard, that's a great time to get it done.
We're going to watch you prune for a minute.
All right, I'm going to go at it a little bit more here. Oh,
So is it true that you're known as the Rembrandt of Rochester?
the Rembrandt. What would that be?
The artisan of the orchard?
Artisan of the orchard. Okay, yeah, well, I've never heard that, but maybe you've heard something I haven't. So I used to climb the trees, but then I decided the ladders were easier to get up and down. After doing this for 15 years, I've never fallen off a ladder.
I can see what's going to happen.
Even
in
though
5
I'm going
minutes,
above the red step where it says not to go above. Watch it, this be the first time I fall off.
Those are the ones that you put the electrical tape over, like to check engine light in your car.
Exactly. So now we got up here. The tops, the trees always want to get tall, so you got to manage the height. And So you always got to make some aggressive, kind of ugly cuts up here in the top of the tree.
It looks like one thing you're doing, like you said before, is getting rid of that vertical
Again, right.
sky orientation on apples,
Yeah.
on limbs.
A great rule of thumb is flat wood makes fruit buds, vertical wood makes growth.
Yeah.
So we want to encourage as much fruiting as we can, and I don't know, I don't really like that, but next year this thing's probably going to come off down to here. And
Yep.
so that's about it for the top of this tree. I try not to make too many little nippy cuts. I like to, you know, either remove the whole limb or none of it. I try to do that in an ideal world. It's always better to make bigger cuts. Don't do in 5 cuts what you can do in 1 cut on the trees, basically. Think big when you're pruning. Take out the older wood, and then if you get that done, the rest is just details, and it's really not as important as those bigger cuts are.
So for the home person standing there with their brand new pruners looking at a tree,
Yeah.
bottom line is it would be hard to actually do permanent damage to the
Right.
tree. And my guess would be that the average pruner, beginning pruner, doesn't prune as much as they could or should, that they're much more on the conservative side. I don't want to take that, I don't want to take that.
Yeah, I would agree 100% with that.
okay.
Go big. Use your saw more than your
Whoa.
loppers. Use the saw more than the loppers, especially when you first get to a tree. You want to look for those big cuts that
Unless your name is Cindy, right, on the loppers?
I don't know, this thing is just aching. You see how old this limb is here?
Yeah.
It's got this medusa of vigorous wood coming off this, and I don't like it. I don't like this one either because it's growing straight up.
So we're gonna take a shot of you.
So I'm gonna come in here.
Do your magic on this gnarly tree.
Again, I'm taking out this older part of this limb, and once I pull this away, you'll see there's a lot of younger stuff that I'd left in there.
Yep.
I really don't like this vigorous upright one, so it's gonna come off. And what I'm looking for here is what I'm thinking in my 3rd dimension time. I really want a new limb originating off this trunk to replace this whole
Oh, okay.
major limb here in the renewal process. I've got this nice one coming over here. I've got this guy here, this one coming in here. So what I don't want to do is come in here and trim all these little limblets, we'll call them, because that's our future.
So are you going to leave that major branch this year?
For this year, because I don't have a good replacement ready to go yet, ready to take its place, you know?
But if you took it, it wouldn't be a functional mistake with the tree. It would just be you'll probably lose a little bit of fruit production.
Sure.
For next year too. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. We'd lose some fruiting capacity out of this part of the tree. We wouldn't be maximizing the tree anymore. And we do want to see this. I mean, there's just nothing good here. So I'm going to cut that off. And I really, really like this. This thing is just exactly what we're looking for our replacement wood. So probably next year, this will be big enough that it can be the major limb on this part of the tree. And we're going to cut this guy right back to here.
Yep.
It's that renewal. Okay. So
it seems like on a day when you've had a bad couple of days, do you prune heavier?
I was trimming once with my dad years ago, and I got to the orchard before him, and he come out and saw what I did the first hour of the day. He's like, "Gee, Skip, what'd these trees do to you?"
So you ended up with just the trunk of the tree?
Exactly. I was hitting them kind of hard that day, I guess. But the nice thing about apple trees is they grow back.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's like getting a haircut.
Right. There's job security in this business, and there's always next year. So the worst cut is the one not made.
Yeah.
So if you're hesitant, you know, just make the cut.
So when in doubt, cut it out.
Yep. Go out and loosen your inhibitions, maybe with a little shot of bourbon or something before you head out to the orchard.
You guys make hard cider.
Yeah, drink some hard cider, maybe before. And make the big cuts.
I find
this thing is
amazing that you prune 3,000 trees every year.
Yep.
It's like when we were talking to
it's a job.
to Josh the maple syrup boiling operation. He's got 900 taps he has to put in every spring, and then a couple of weeks go back and pull them all out, and a lot of work.
Maintaining the equipment he has, all those tabs, right? Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Like we were telling Josh, one of the things that we're huge supporters of is people like you and him that carry on these wonderful New England traditions and family farms, and you open to the public in usually around that second, third week of June.
Yeah, when the strawberries are ready to pick. That's the first pick your own crop we have of the season.
Strawberries, yep, okay.
And it's really, I really enjoy this farm because of that customer interaction, and you know, we can share agriculture with whoever's willing to take the chance and come on out and visit us and enjoy in the harvest and see how it all happens. I get a lot of personal satisfaction with seeing non-farming people who didn't grow up on a farm or aren't participating in farms right now, or excuse me, you know, owning one. You know, they have the ability to come out and participate in it, and it's really quite nice. I enjoy that quite a bit.
And so many people don't understand where their food comes from other than the grocery store.
There's a big knowledge gap there for sure.
Yeah. And we, you know, being in the agricultural field myself, we see that the issues now with the changes in the climate, with rainfall, and this year with supply chain and scarcity of fertilizer, that running a farm efficiently is more and more important, both to the the general public and to the environment. So
yep, it's always challenging. I like that.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So you made it through the winter all right without any. Actually, the buds have they started to crack at all?
Well, we've got a little bud movement here. I mean, if we wanted to zoom in here on some of these terminal buds, it's starting to get a little swollen up. Okay, so we're at early silver tip bud stage development. Okay,
so this wouldn't have been fuzzy a couple of weeks ago.
Right, it would have been a little more closed up. You know, these early buds are starting to show up. Some of these are pretty well still dormant, which is good because we don't want things to wake up too early. The earlier they wake up, the more susceptible they are to cold damage. We've got some cold days predicted next week, so you know, it's gotten my attention. You know, we don't want these buds to be moving too much before Monday night's cold temperature of 17 degrees, which is predicted right now. So.
I remember a couple of years ago with all the fires, didn't you have fires built out here?
We had 3 years in a row where we suffered poor crops because of warm springs that started early, and then we had cold weather return that just killed fruit buds, basically.
And I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand is the fickleness of the weather, the science, that very delicate balance between the organism, the weather, and it takes one night to wreak havoc on. You've got 3,000 apple trees. You have peaches too?
Sure,
How many peaches trees?
Well, not that many. Under 1,000. They're spaced a little further apart.
And cherries.
And cherries. Cherries, peaches, couple pear trees. So
will you prune peaches pretty much the same way as apples?
Yeah, well, we prune them hard, the same mentality, you know, out with the old, in with the new, opening them up for sunlight and better fruit quality. And that starts here in about 2 or 3 more weeks. We'll start pruning our peaches.
So do you wait on those peaches? Because is it just because you got to get the apples done first, or is there a reason that
that's part of it? But you like to wait until the peach tree is actively growing when you prune it, so those pruning wounds heal over quickly. Those cells anytime I make a cut, it's exposing green tissue on the tree, and peach trees within the first 2 days after you make that cut are really susceptible to diseases that get in there. Peach trees love to die. More so than apples.
More so, I was just going to say more so than apples.
So we wait for nice actively growing trees where those cuts heal over quickly and dry weather.
Obviously is a sign of a nice healing
Yep,
process
exactly.
on this. Now, people come in now and then and ask me, well, I'm making cuts on my trees. Should I paint them? And the obvious, the science at the moment seems to all say that no, let it heal naturally in the air, that if you seal it, you can actually seal in bacteria and viruses. So you obviously...
I've never,
Okay. Yeah, I could see that would be a daunting task.
Right,
but,
right. It would be a daunting task, so.
We'll step back again and watch you prune.
All right, here we go. I've been looking at, sometimes you walk up to a tree and you see the cuts right away.
Okay.
And it's pretty easy, but sometimes you walk up to the tree and you don't see the cuts right away. So it's, see, we've got this nice replacement limb coming in here, and maybe we'll wait till next year to let it be the lone limb on this part of the tree.
So it's interesting, though, that when you're pruning, you're not thinking really just of now, you're thinking a couple of years ahead even.
You betcha, always. And we're gonna make a big cut here. So this limb is ugly, this lower limb here is ugly. But this is the kind of cut that needs to happen to keep things in balance on this tree, I think. It's getting too old. This is one of the first limbs. When this tree was planted, this limb was probably on the tree.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of ugly now, but we're gonna get some replacement wood to come in here and fill that in.
So in a normal year with this many trees, do you even have an estimate of like how many bushels of apples you guys produce?
Yep.
Why would I even think that you wouldn't?
About 7 acres of apples. Some of it's younger orchards that aren't in full production yet, but I think we produce about 3,500 to 4,000 bushels a year if things go well and Mother Nature and our crop load is maximized every year. You know, we don't get any
and the odds of that happening or what?
What's that?
And the odds of that happening or what?
You know, pretty good, but you know, a year when everything just goes right, they're not that many. So it's like a 50-50 of everything going right.
Yep.
Now there's a lot of marginal years that are good enough. You pay the bills and you can keep the lights on, and there's enough apples for people to come and pick. But you know, I'm kind of a perfectionist. I always looking to maximize everything and you know, kind of hit a home run every season. So. And
when you open for apple season, families can come and just pick their own and come up and they can mix and match. You probably have
pick from any. Yep, we do our best to label the rows, and every row is a different variety and different harvest timing. So we try to label everything so everybody can make their own decisions when they're out there wandering around the farm. You know, which rows are the best to pick today. And during apple season, that's a little less important because, you know, once you get in the middle of September, towards the end of September, most varieties we have are ripe enough and ready to go. So people can wander and pick 2 apples from this tree, 3 from that tree, and get a nice...
I hear that last year, in general, was a good apple year.
Was a great apple season. We had a nice heavy crop. Last year was one of those years where I feel like it went really well. And we had good quality. We had the right crop load on the trees. And I feel like we're set up with good buds for this coming year's crop.
Nice. Do you see a periodic wave action in apple production naturally, or is it all environment and conditions driven? I mean, is there like a genetic predisposition to heavy yields and then...
Oh yeah, for sure, yes. It's a variety dependent, of course, but some varieties are really heavy with that heavy year, lots of apples, and then the next year they barely have any. And then, so our job as a orchardist, what was the word you used before? The palmolier or the something like that is to level that curve out, and we can do that through pruning and lots of other crop load management techniques.
And variety mixing and ages of...
and like, for example, Honeycrisp. Everybody loves Honeycrisp, okay? It's a great apple, but it's a terrible tree to manage. It's not farmer friendly at all because it's extremely biannual.
Oh, really?
So it's hard to get the Honeycrisp variety to bear fruit every year.
So would one think along the lines of overlapping cropping, like Does that?
It's kind of nice when
work?
half your Honeycrisp are there.
Yeah,
You know, it's kind of of all your Honeycrisp trees if they're opposites. You know,
so
with that up and down.
That is part of the overall planning process.
Well, you don't really have a lot of control over that. It's hard to get. Usually, all of them are one way or the other. Is the way it settles out.
Yeah.
But like the big thing is managing crop loads and not letting there be too many apples this year, because next year's could be a lighter crop because of that. So
you done this tree?
Well, no, I'm not done with it.
Okay.
I'm just, I kind of got sidetracked.
We'll step back and watch you finish this one.
All right, well, let's get this tree all done here. I'm gonna get in here. You know, that crop load management is also part of the art of growing apples. And it's one of the most important jobs of the year is managing the crop load on your trees because of that biannual tendency. You know, if you're trying to make a living and your apple trees only produce every other year, there goes half your revenue. So it's quite an important part of it.
This one's taking on a little more of a contemporary look, so this one would be more of a Picasso of pruning effect.
Picasso. We like the Christmas tree shape. You know, we want them to get skinnier as they get towards the top for light penetration, and we don't want the upper limbs to shade out the lower limbs. So that's certainly for a reason. An umbrella tree where it, really strong aggressive limbs at the top is not a great thing. And that's what the tree wants to do. That's why I was getting back. If you leave a tree to its own devices, it's going to put a lot of strong growth up here, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger, and it's going to shade out everything down low. So
what is that? Deliquescent branching? What is it? Deliquescent and excurrent, right? I think evergreens are excurrent in that.
We got a lot of nice limbs here, so it's hard to just make a decision as to which one to cut off.
Yeah. And again, getting back to that home pruner, you can leave them.
You can leave them
and not do damage, or you can cut them and not do damage outside of cutting potential yield off.
Right, exactly. Like I just made one little cut here, but this is still a little crowded in here for me in this elevation on the tree. But it's a lot of young limbs.
Yeah.
Nothing too aggressive in here, so you could get away, and I think I'm going to do that. I made some aggressive cuts up top. I'm going to leave this middle section as it is. One more cut over here, and that's that. This tree's about done. And again, you could go through and make a lot more nippy cuts in here, which we can make a couple here.
I take it that's a scientific farming word?
Nippy cuts?
Nippy cuts?
Nipping. Snipping tips, nipping, A good pruner will make bigger cuts. That's what's the best for the tree.
Yeah.
You're pruning for the tree, and then you're managing your crop load for the apples. But you always want to think about the tree health when you're pruning.
Yeah, and we can,
these two.
When I'm standing here and I'm looking upwards at this part that hasn't been done and downward, it's a dramatic, dramatic difference.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's a lot of this lower growth coming out and upward all the way down the row too.
Yep. And you can see that's the tendency of an apple tree to compete with itself. It's sending all of this vigorous wood up. This tree's a nightmare. Look at all this stuff. It's all fun to look at, but it's lousy for your tree and lousy for fruit production. So you want to take the vigor out of the tree when you're pruning, all of this stuff, and leave this calmer, nice, delicate wood in there to grow your fruit on.
So what we should probably do is let you get back to pruning. I think having watched you do this and understanding what it is you're trying to do, and that I think that really important point again for the home apple tree owner is that don't be afraid to prune and to prune heavily.
Yep.
Because you're doing nothing but good for the tree. The last question I'd ask would be for somebody with an older tree. You obviously every year put some type of a nutrient a fertilizer down for somebody that has old trees that probably they moved in and they haven't been taken care of?
Yep.
Would you just put a general, like a 10-10-10, or would they go with something like a fruit tree specific? Of course, the first thing they should do is have the soil tested, which we tell everybody.
Right.
But the odds of that happening with most people is, you know where that is.
Pretty low, right.
So getting something like one of the products rated for fruit trees, general fruit tree application. So you guys do a scatter on and not doing something like the spikes in the ground. Obviously,
right. We do.
You could never do that. Yeah.
A granular scatter on, and we really, for the most part, in our apples, we do not use any nitrogen. Because we get enough growth. Our soil here is healthy enough.
Yep.
There's enough nitrogen in the soil, and we're getting all the growth we want. Nitrogen makes growth.
Yeah.
So if you want your trees to have a lot of nice succulent wood on them with nice vigorous growth, throw a lot of nitrogen down.
And the big, just with like any vegetable or plant, it is a driver of leaf production too.
Sure.
And not the primary driver of fruit production, which would be more of that phosphorus, potassium.
Right.
So, okay.
So we do apply. I don't need to apply any phosphorus here because this is an old dairy farm.
Oh,
the
wow.
phosphorus levels on this farm are way off the charts.
Yeah.
My kids won't have to apply any phosphorus probably. But potassium is very important for fruit bud production and maintaining your fruitfulness of your orchard. If we wanted to take 4 or 5 years off from applying phosphorus, probably wouldn't notice it. But after that, we're going to start noticing less and less fruit buds on our trees and less apples produced, because every bag of apples that leaves this farm is taking phosphorus off the farm, potash off the farm with it.
And we, that's something that with the videos that I do, people hear me over and over and over. If you're a serious grower or you just want that maximal production, because my philosophy is always, if you're growing something, you want to get the best quality, the highest yield for the work that you're putting in. So have your soil tested so that you know these guys are growing because they're getting well fed. If they're not well fed, they'll be deficient in nutrients and they can't produce either the wood, the blossoms, or most importantly, the fruit. So have your soil tested, and then I always tell people that come in and say, what can I put on my soil? My answer to that is, you shouldn't put anything on your soil unless there's a reason to put it on.
Right.
You know, if you do, over fertilizing can be just as serious a problem, or more so than under.
And under fertilizing.
So have your soil tested. And you can do that at the University of New Hampshire, I think. And
they have a soil testing lab there.
There's a couple costs you. I think it's in that $30 range. But I tell growers it's probably the best $30 you'll ever. If you're growing food for your family, that's going to make the difference 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% or more in the production and the quality of your food. So, and that's one thing I really respect you guys up here is just you work with the soil in a symbiosis rather than competing with it. We can't thank you enough for taking the time to work with us and showing me and hopefully people who watch the video how to care for your apple trees at home and what's involved in actually producing crops for a farm like this where people come. It's not just plant the trees,
forget about
picking for the 5 years. There's a lot of work. You're working 24/7 basically all year round to produce the quality and the volume that you produce.
Sure,
so,
well, thanks for coming by. I appreciate you.
This is one of my favorite places, and for any of you guys that want a wonderful place to come with your families all through the season, this is a place to come for more than just picking fruit. It's an experience that you can all share, and you know, just it's a wonderful place for you and your family. So. Gift, thank you.
My pleasure.
Head out. Get back.
Thank you very much.
What do you got? 2,000 left to do?
Well, no, actually, probably only about 200 or 300 left to do, to be honest with you. We're getting close to the end.
Carry on. Thanks so much, Gift.
All right, guys. Take care.
Well, here we are back at the castle. That, like I said, out at Gifts is one of my absolute favorite places to just be able to share that family-run farm. Giff is such a wonderful person, knowledgeable person. So I can't tell you too many times, if you want something wonderful to do with your family, take them out to Butternut Farm, enjoy the pick your own, enjoy the animals, enjoy just everything that Butternut Farm has to offer. They're really good people, and it's a wonderful place. So I'm looking forward to seeing you again shortly when we take another adventure. And remember, you need to know what your plants need to grow.